Love, love, go till I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Cassius Soares. He is a lay missionary and works with YWAM. Hello, Cassius.
Hi,
welcome
Geraldine.
to the show.
Thank you.
You've been a lay missionary for many years, working
Yeah.
with YWAM, and you do have a passion for unity. Could you share about that unity that you feel on your heart?
For me, unity and missions is intimately connected. That scripture, especially in the last prayer where Jesus prayed in John 17, Father, may they be one as you and I are one, so that the world will know the Son. And so for me, unity and missions is intimately connected, and that's something that God has really made a very important part of my life over this journey with YWAM. So I grew up Catholic, and I came to the Lord in the Catholic Church, and then God led me to work with predominantly Protestant missionary organizations. So that whole journey kind of forged this this passion for unity in my heart, and I began to see this deep wounding in the body of Christ between Catholics and Protestants, and how that really affects missions.
Yes.
So that's very much part of why I feel so strongly about, so passionately about unity.
What do you think is the key to unity, especially with all the different Christian faiths?
Well, a lot of it is love. Finally, it comes down to love, and relational unity. If the gospel that we preach is the gospel of reconciliation, like Paul says, through the gospel we reconciled to God, but we also reconciled to one another. We see this big division of Jews and Gentiles being healed at the cross, and so the gospel is about reconciliation, and so that's the message that we carry as missionaries, as Christians to the world. Jesus came to reconcile us to God and to one another. So unity is really part of that message. And if we preach this gospel of reconciliation, but in our lives are not able to reconcile one another and not live in unity, we preach a gospel which is not credible anymore, because we are saying, it's like we're saying it'll work for you, this gospel, but it doesn't work for me.
Yes.
Because we're divided and we can't get along and we can't love one another. So really, I think our lives are relationships of unity is a key part of witnessing to the gospel. That's witnessing to the power of God, of what He can do. In spite of our differences, in spite of very significant differences in belief and practice, that we can love one another and have relationships of unity. That's, to me, that's the power of the gospel.
Wow.
And so it's very important, I think.
Have you been through personal experience of disunity and unity? Or have you got any stories and examples that you can share?
Yeah, lots actually, because I've been involved in this now, 29, almost 30 years next year.
Wow.
And really had to live this out and live this journey. It's challenging because, I work with an organization which we have people from many different denominations, parts of the body of Christ. And so when people come to work with our organization, they bring with them what they've grown up with. The good things, but also the emotional baggage and stuff, relational baggage, which is not helpful. And so we all experience that and have to walk that out in our journey. So, for example, as a Catholic, how do I relate to Protestants? How do I deal with the things in my life which I've grown up with? And many times we've grown up with caricatures of the other. Where we've learned that, for example, I grew up, being told that be careful of Protestants. they'll take you out of the church. And they were like, in my mind, these ogres were just waiting to snatch me and pull me out of the church, you know.
Yes.
That's the picture I grew up with, you know. And so when I joined this organization, I was very scared. And I was excited. God had called me to work with, this organization.
Wow.
He'd called me to be a missionary. And I loved what I was learning in this organization.
Yes.
But I remember the first time, as part of our, our training, we were going to do a program in another church. And I'd never been to a Protestant church, you know. I'd only ever been to a Catholic church. So through this organization, the first time I went to a Protestant church, it was a Church of Nazarene, a big Protestant denomination. And I remember going there feeling very scared, because in my heart this was the idea I had of Protestants. And I remember still that moment, we went through a church service, a very different church service from ours. But what stood out to me at the end of it was, hey, they're just like us. The same, they love Jesus. Yes, there's differences in the styles and what they do, but basically they love Jesus. No one tried to, pull me out of Catholic church. And it was a very positive experience. You know? And the same thing I found, one of the things I've done time and again in this organization is I've created opportunities for Protestants to come to, especially Catholic charismatic events. Where there's praise and worship, and there's teaching, and there's fellowship. And many times, every time really, the people who've come with me have gone away thinking, wow, they're just like us, they're not different, but they had this very different picture in their minds of Catholics.
Yes.
And, and what Catholics are like, and how we relate to Jesus and so on. And God, through those experiences, just blew up those categories in their mind, just like He did for mine.
Yes. Yeah, it's fascinating, because it's in sense of letting go of disunity and reconcile is very important.
Yeah.
On that note, we need to go for a break. You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Cassius Soares. He works with YWAM, and he's talking about unity between different faiths. Welcome back, Cassius. You were sharing first about unity with the different Christian faiths. However, we would like to also ask you questions about unity, because we know you work with unity with other faiths too.
Well, again, building on what I shared before, again, the Gospel's really about reconciliation and about love. And I think whether it's loving fellow Christians or loving people of other faiths, it comes back to love, and if I cannot love someone who's different from me, then where's the power of gospel in my life? One of the things often that keeps people apart is differences. We get afraid when people are different from us. They have different practices, they have different beliefs, and it's easier to stick with people you're comfortable with. It's a comfort zone we naturally tend towards, and so it takes effort to break out of that, I think. And we very much need that, because how will the other person know the power of Christ and the power of the gospel and the love that is possible unless we reach out to others? So I think it's very, very important to go beyond our comfort zones and to meet and engage with people, even of other faiths, to look at the things that we share in common. Yeah, we have differences, but there's a lot of things that we do share in common.
Yes.
Because we're all human beings.
Yes.
We all have very similar hopes and dreams and desires and fears about today and tomorrow. And so there's so much scope for building relationships and working together even with people of other faiths. Say for example in the whole area of marriage, it's an institution which is respected and which is accepted across religions and across faiths.
Yes.
And people, no matter which religion they belong to, they long for healthy, strong marriages which are growing, and families which are at peace in their relationships with one another. And so we can, that's an area which we share in common,
yes,
which we can work together on.
Yes.
How do we build strong marriages? We want good education for our children, no matter which religion we belong to. We want peace in our country. Many are concerned for, even for example, when you talk of pro-life issues and the unborn and respecting life within the womb. That's something that we can work together across religious barriers.
Wow.
So there's a lot that we can do, I think, but it starts with building relationship.
Yes, and what do you do with there's been breakdown in relationships between different countries, and you hear about the terror in the world against different religions, or you hear about the fighting in Ireland, all those kind of conflicts around the world. How do you begin to build bridges in that?
Well, a lot of it is, I think, one area I think is to begin to pray, because prayer gives you God's heart for people. And, even though the issues might be far away from your own home, when you begin to pray, you begin to get God's heart for those people. They are brother and sister in some way. They're part of the human family. And as we begin to pray for people, we can, begin to have hope in our lives that change is possible. There's no situation beyond God's reach. But the other thing is also, how do I, in my own sphere of influence where I am, how can I be different? When there's conflict, for example, in Ireland between Catholics and Protestants, I can begin to reflect on what is my attitude as a Catholic or as a Protestant towards the other, where I am. Am I building towards peace, or am I building towards conflict? And so a lot of the change begins with me in my immediate situation. And again, prayer is very important, because all of us are challenged in some way to grow, become more like Jesus, to become more loving, to become more reconciled, to become more peacemaker. So definitely these are things that we can do. Praying, building relationship, reaching out, and changing our own attitudes.
Yeah, because people have set perspectives or judgments of each religion, and I suppose you could say that would be of our own personal relationships, that we also have judgments. So what you're saying is having God's perspective. Is that true?
Yeah. Because we grow up, and and in the process we take on assumptions, opinions, and we don't always examine them, take time to examine them. And so we will continue with them unless we are challenged, which can happen in the place of prayer. But also it can happen in an encounter with another person. Things arise in our hearts, and we realize, hey, there's something in my heart which is not helpful here. Generalizations is another thing that is very common. For example, we have groups in certain parts of the world who are very militant and would persecute or terrorize others. For example, today, especially with Islamic terrorists, it's very easy to generalize and think all Muslims are like that, and then begin to judge Muslims in our hearts, or withdraw from them, or and that's just not God's way, because most Muslims aren't like that, and it's most Muslims are not terrorists. They're peace-loving people who are very open to other religions, open to relationship, who love community, who love family. They're very relational people. And so if we reach out and put aside our fears and put aside generalization, really encounter them in relationship, we'll probably find something very different from what we feared.
Yeah, it's true that about unity and taking away the fear and not judging. It's been fascinating. I will go to the break now.
Yeah.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Cassius Soares. He works with YWAM. Welcome back. You're a missionary for YWAM, and you've been working in unity, not only with faith, but also with marriages. Yeah. Could you tell us more about your work in marriages, building unity and developing better relationships?
Yeah. It's something which has really come out of my own story and my own marriage, because we had a very rough start ourselves, and so many people helped us, to build a strong marriage through counseling, through retreats and programs, and we've really appreciated people's help along the way. And we know that there are many people who struggle in their marriages without any help, and so out of that has birthed a desire to really support people in their marriages and build unity. And marriage is a basic element of both the church and of society, and really as goes marriage, so goes the church, so goes society. So we feel it's a significant area to focus our efforts. Over the years, we've done various kinds of training to help support marriages, whether it's premarital preparation or supporting couples to enrich their marriage relationship after they've got married, or even helping couples in crisis with some level of counseling and support. Over the last few years, we've particularly trained in marriage coaching, which is different from marriage counseling. And really, to get some more skills to support couples in strengthening their marriages.
That's fantastic. What skill is an important thing for a successful marriage?
Well, there's several, but one of the most basic ones, which is fundamental to every marriage, is listening. Because in any relationships, communication is central to the relationship. And listening is a very, very key part of communication. Listening is something that we teach all couples and train couples in, so that they can grow in their marriage relationship.
How can you be a good listener? What are some steps you need to do to be a good listener?
Well, we talk about both the heart and the skill. So the heart, first of all, is really the heart of Jesus towards us, which is a heart of patience. You need patience for listening. You need compassion when the person is sharing, that you really feel for them. It's a heart of selflessness, because you make room for, even though I might be tired, or I might not feel like listening, I make room for the other person, because they need someone to listen to. So it's a heart of, first of all, that heart of compassion, of patience, of selflessness. And if that's in place, then we can also build the skill of listening. Both the heart and the skill are important. The skill of listening involves especially learning to shut off the conversation in your own mind, in your own head. For me, I know that was very important. How do I stop the self-talk? Because when your spouse, when my wife is talking, am I really focusing on what she's saying and her thoughts, her feelings, her desires, or am I thinking about what I'm going to respond to what she's saying, or my objections to what she's saying, or my questions about what she's saying? I found for me that's a very, very important thing to discipline myself, to shut off the conversation in my mind, so that I can truly listen.
Yes, it is. It sounds like a discipline. It's like having the right attitude and also having the skill of shutting off your brain and being disciplined.
Yeah,
quite a challenge that people don't think about.
It's something that you have to develop and be more intentional about, I find. So we teach people skills like, for example, reflective listening, which helps slow down the conversation. So when and this is especially useful for difficult conversations, or conversations where you tend to get into argument or conflict, or you feel like you're missing each other. You wouldn't use this in everyday conversation. But what it does, it really slows down the conversation so that you can really pay attention.
So it's like checking, like a bit like paraphrasing, saying what they have said in your own words.
Yeah. You can do it in different ways, but you basically, like a mirror, you're reflecting back to the other person.
Checking that you've got the right message.
Yes. And if the other person feels heard, then you move on to the next thing they want to say. And so we even teach people to break it up, the conversation, to smaller pieces. Because otherwise you miss some important things. Say a few phrases, reflect back, make sure the person's heard, then let them share again. So you don't share what you think or what you feel about the topic till that person feels heard.
That's
so this is
important.
one very important
the feeling
skill.
Heard, isn't it? That is important.
Yeah, because you might think, okay, I heard you, but if the other person doesn't feel heard,
yes, so it's even checking that they feel heard.
Yeah, so finally that's the test. Did they feel heard? Then you really listened.
Yes.
So that's a skill we teach people, which can really help communication in a marriage.
Yeah, and you do workshops and you do life coach and you'll be speaking at a singles conference sometime this year, October 17, 18 this year. That's fantastic. And with the life coach, can people come to you and learn these skills?
Yeah, well, the marriage, I do both life coaching for individuals, and then my wife and I do marriage coaching together. So if it's marriage coaching, my wife and I would do it together, and we do it for an individual couple. We do it face to face, but we also do it over Skype if they're further away and they can't come to us.
Wow.
That's also possible to do it over Skype. We do also workshops for groups of couples.
Fantastic.
And
so it's a great service to society and to the Christian community, what you're offering, life coach, workshops, pray. And you've got a bit of a Facebook account too that people can contact you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I wish you all the best in your work, and God bless, and hope we can have you back soon sometime.
Thank you.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back next week. Goodbye and God bless you.